Every conversation you have is a chance to change your life, but only if you know how to begin. Think about it. A single exchange can open doors to new careers, friendships, opportunities, or even love. Yet so many of us hesitate at the threshold. We worry about saying the wrong thing, about being overlooked, or about not knowing how to keep the dialogue alive. And in those moments of hesitation, opportunities slip quietly away. Leil Lowndes, in her book How to Talk to Anyone, reminds us that connection is not a matter of luck. It is a skill that can be learned, practiced, and mastered. Whether you're meeting someone for the first time, trying to impress in a job interview, or simply hoping to feel more confident in everyday interactions, the way you begin a conversation can shape everything that follows. This book is not about tricks or manipulation. It's about discovering the natural warmth and confidence already inside you and learning how to express it so others feel it too. Welcome to Book Play, where we turn powerful books into powerful life changes. If this message resonates with you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you never miss a life-changing lesson from the books that can transform your mindset. Today, we'll explore How to Talk to Anyone by Leil Lowndes, not just as a summary, but as a living journey. You'll meet Maverick, a young professional under 30 who struggles with confidence and connection. Through his story, you'll see how these lessons can reshape not only his life, but yours too. Maverick was 23 years old, fresh out of university, working as a junior sales associate at a growing tech company. It was the kind of job that demanded charisma, quick thinking, and the ability to connect with people instantly. On paper, it was perfect. A chance to prove himself, earn commissions, and climb the ladder in a competitive industry. But in reality, Maverick felt like he was constantly falling short. Every day he watched his colleagues glide through conversations with ease. They laughed with clients, built rapport in minutes, and seemed to know exactly how to keep dialogue flowing. Maverick, on the other hand, stumbled through introductions. His voice wavered, his palms sweated, and his mind raced with self-doubt. He knew the product inside out, but when it came to people, he froze. At networking events, Maverick stood awkwardly at the edges, clutching his business card like a lifeline. He rehearsed lines in his head, but when the moment came, the words felt forced. He worried that people would find him uninteresting, or worse, forgettable. His manager reminded him often, sales isn't just about the product, it's about people. But Maverick felt like he was failing at the very heart of his job. The pressure weighed heavily. He worked late nights, hoping his performance numbers would speak for him. Yet promotions and recognition went to colleagues who seemed less knowledgeable, but more socially magnetic. Maverick began to wonder if he was cut out for this career at all. One Saturday afternoon, after another draining week, Maverick wandered into a local bookstore. He wasn't looking for anything in particular, just a quiet escape from the noise of the city and the constant pressure of work. The store was warm and inviting, with the faint smell of paper and coffee drifting through the aisles. He moved slowly, letting his fingers trail across the spines of books, searching for something he couldn't quite name. He drifted past novels, biographies, and travel guides until he found himself in the self-improvement section. His eyes scanned the shelves, and then one title stopped him cold. How to Talk to Anyone by Leil Lowndes. The words seemed to leap off the cover. It wasn't about talking to clients or friends or strangers. It was about anyone. It promised universal tools, a way to break free from the chains of self-doubt and finally step into the world with confidence. Maverick reached out and pulled the hardcover copy from the shelf. He felt its weight in his hands, solid and real. He flipped through the pages, noticing bold headings like How to Make an Unforgettable First Impression and The Secret of Small Talk. Each phrase seemed to speak directly to him, as if the author had been watching his struggles all along. For a moment, Maverick stood frozen in the aisle, the book open in his hands. Around him, other shoppers browsed casually, unaware that his life might be about to change. He thought about the countless times he had walked away from conversations feeling defeated. He thought about the promotions he had missed, the friendships he hadn't built, the opportunities that had slipped away. And then he thought, what if this book could help me? He bought the book, choosing the soft cover edition for easier carrying, and tucked it under his arm as he left the store. The weight of it felt symbolic, like he was carrying not just paper and ink, but possibility. That evening, Maverick sat at his desk, the book open before him. The pages felt like a lifeline. He read the introduction slowly, absorbing every word. The author's voice was clear, practical, and encouraging. It didn't promise magic. It promised skills. Skills that could be learned, practiced, and mastered. When Maverick opened How to Talk to Anyone, he quickly realized this wasn't just another self-help book filled with vague encouragement. It was a practical guide written by communication expert Leil Lowndes, who spent decades studying human behavior, social psychology, and the subtle art of connection. The book is built around a simple but powerful idea. Communication is not luck, it is a skill. And like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and mastered. Lowndes breaks down the mysteries of human interaction into 92 clear techniques, each designed to help you navigate conversations with confidence, warmth, and influence. What makes this book impactful is its universality. It doesn't matter if you're speaking to a client, a colleague, a stranger at a party, or even a potential mentor. The principles apply everywhere, from the first impression you make when you walk into a room, to the way you sustain dialogue, to the subtle cues that leave people feeling valued. Every detail matters. For Maverick, this was revolutionary. He had always believed that charisma was something you were born with, a natural gift that others had, but he lacked. But Lowndes showed him that charisma is built from small, intentional actions. A smile held a moment longer, a name remembered, a posture that radiates confidence. These weren't tricks. They were habits, habits that anyone could adopt. The book also emphasizes that communication is not about manipulation. It's about authenticity. The goal is not to impress people with clever lines, but to make them feel comfortable, respected, and genuinely connected. And when people feel that way around you, opportunities naturally unfold. As Maverick turned the pages, he began to see his struggles in a new light. His awkward silences, his nervousness, his missed opportunities, they weren't signs of failure. They were simply gaps in skill. And skills can be learned. This realization filled him with anticipation. Each chapter felt like a doorway to a new possibility. He could imagine himself walking into meetings with confidence, greeting clients with ease, and leaving conversations where people remembered his name and wanted to see him again. For the listener, this book offers the same promise. Whether you're building a career, nurturing relationships, or simply trying to feel more confident in everyday life, How to Talk to Anyone provides tools that can transform the way you connect. And now, we'll walk through some of the most life-changing lessons from the book, lessons that guided Maverick from self-doubt to self-assurance, and that can guide you too. Lesson number 1. First impressions begin before words. People decide how they feel about you before you even speak. For Maverick, this truth struck like a revelation. At 23, he had always believed that conversations began with words. He thought the challenge was finding the right sentence, the clever remark, or the perfect introduction. But he began to realize that impressions are formed in silence, in the seconds before speech. When he entered meetings, his body betrayed him. His shoulders slouched, his eyes darted nervously, and his energy seemed withdrawn. Before he even opened his mouth, people had already decided he was timid, uncertain, perhaps even unprepared. This explained so much. Why colleagues overlooked him, why clients seemed disengaged, why he felt invisible. It wasn't just what he said about Swig. It was how he appeared before saying anything at all. Determined to change, Maverick began practicing presence. He stood in front of his mirror at home, adjusting his posture, shoulders back, chin slightly lifted, feet grounded. He practiced making eye contact with himself, holding it long enough to feel steady, but not intimidating. He rehearsed a gentle, genuine smile, one that radiated warmth without seeming forced. The first time he tried this at work, he felt awkward. Walking into a meeting with his new posture felt unnatural, almost theatrical. But then something surprising happened. His manager greeted him first. A colleague invited him into the conversation. The energy in the room shifted. People noticed him. It wasn't magic, it was presence. And Maverick realized that presence begins before words. For you, the same principle applies. Before speaking, adjust your body language. Stand tall, relax your shoulders, smile gently, and make eye contact. These subtle cues create an aura of confidence and openness. They tell people, I am here, I am present, and I am worth listening to. First impressions are shaped by presence, not just words, but presence alone is only the beginning. Once the ice is broken, the real challenge begins. How do you keep the conversation alive and make people feel truly valued? Lesson number 2, the power of listening. People feel valued when they are truly heard. For Maverick, this was a turning point. He had always believed that conversations were about what he could say to impress others. He thought success meant having clever lines ready or filling every silence with words. But he discovered that listening was far more powerful than speaking. At work, Maverick used to panic about what to say next. His mind raced, searching for the perfect response, and in that rush, he often missed what the other person was really saying. Clients sensed his distraction. Colleagues felt he wasn't fully present. And so, even when he spoke, his words carried little weight. When he began practicing active listening, everything changed. He leaned in slightly when others spoke, nodded gently, and allowed pauses to breathe instead of rushing to fill them. He repeated back key words, showing he had absorbed what was said. He asked simple follow-up questions, not to impress, but to understand. The effect was immediate. People opened up to him. Clients shared more details, colleagues confided in him, and conversations flowed without effort. Maverick realized that listening removed the pressure to perform. He didn't need to be the most interesting person in the room. He needed to be the most attentive. For you, the same principle applies. Practice listening with intention. Let silence work for you. Show genuine interest by echoing words or asking thoughtful questions. When people feel heard, they feel respected, and respect builds trust faster than any clever remark. Listening builds trust faster than talking, and once trust is built, the next challenge emerges. How do you make people remember you long after the conversation ends? Lesson number 3, the name game. A person's name is the sweetest sound they can hear. For Maverick, this lesson was both simple and profound. He had always struggled with remembering names. At networking events, he would meet someone, shake their hand, and within minutes forget what they had just told him. The embarrassment that followed made him avoid repeating names altogether, which only deepened the distance between him and others. When he discovered the importance of names, he realized how powerful they could be. A name is not just a label, it is identity, recognition, and respect. Forgetting it sends a message of indifference, while remembering it makes someone feel valued. Maverick began practicing techniques to remember names. He repeated them during conversation. Nice to meet you, Sarah. That's a great point, David. He associated names with visual cues, linking them to something memorable about the person. He even wrote them down discreetly after meetings to reinforce memory. The change was remarkable. When Maverick greeted colleagues by name, their faces lit up. Clients felt noticed and appreciated. Even casual acquaintances warmed to him instantly. What once felt like a weakness became one of his strengths. For you, the same principle applies. Use names often, repeat them naturally in conversation. If you struggle to remember, write them down or create mental associations. The effort you make will never go unnoticed. Remembering names makes people feel seen. And once people feel seen, the next step is helping them feel connected. Not just through words, but through the subtle language of rapport. Lesson number 4, mirror and match. Connection is built not only through words, but through the subtle rhythm of body language and tone. Maverick discovered this lesson during a client meeting. He had prepared his pitch carefully, but the client seemed distant, arms crossed, voice flat. Maverick pushed harder with facts and features, but the more he spoke, the more the client withdrew. Later, reflecting on the encounter, he realized he had missed something crucial. People feel comfortable when they sense similarity. He began experimenting with mirroring and matching, not in an exaggerated way, but subtly. If someone leaned forward, he leaned forward too. If they spoke slowly, he slowed his pace. If they used certain words, he echoed them naturally in his response. The effect was almost immediate. Conversations felt smoother, clients relaxed, and colleagues opened up more easily. This wasn't about imitation. It was about harmony. By aligning his energy with others, Maverick created a sense of familiarity. People felt understood, even before he had fully expressed his ideas. For you, the same principle applies. Pay attention to the person in front of you. Notice their posture, their tone, their pace. Adjust yourself gently to match their rhythm. When you do, you send a silent message. We are on the same wavelength. Rapport is not built by forcing connection, but by creating comfort. And once comfort is established, the next step is to show confidence, not perfection, but calm assurance that draws people in. Lesson number 5. Confidence matters more than perfection. People don't remember perfect words, they remember the confidence behind them. For Maverick, this lesson was liberating. He had always believed that success in conversation meant saying everything flawlessly. He rehearsed lines in his head, worried about grammar, and panicked over pauses. But the more he chased perfection, the more nervous he became, and the less people connected with him. One day, during a client call, Maverick stumbled over his pitch. He expected the client to lose interest, but instead, the client leaned in and listened. Maverick realized it wasn't the stumble that mattered. It was the calm way he recovered. His steady tone and relaxed posture carried more weight than the exact words he used. From then on, he stopped chasing perfection. He focused on speaking with calm assurance, even when he wasn't sure of the exact phrasing. He slowed his pace, allowed pauses, and trusted that confidence would carry him further than memorized lines. The difference was striking. People responded to his energy, not his precision. For you, the same principle applies. Confidence is magnetic. Speak with steady tone, breathe deeply, and don't fear mistakes. A pause is not failure. It is presence. People will forgive imperfect words, but they will remember the assurance you project. Confidence matters more than perfection, and once you stop worrying about flawless delivery, you can focus on something even more powerful, turning small talk into meaningful connection. Lesson number 6. Small talk is big talk. Small talk is not meaningless chatter. It is the bridge to deeper connection. For Maverick, this lesson was uncomfortable at first. He had always dismissed small talk as a waste of time. He wanted conversations to be serious, productive, and straight to the point. But this mindset left him isolated. At networking events, he skipped the casual exchanges, diving straight into business talk, and people pulled away. They didn't feel relaxed around him. When he began to practice small talk, everything shifted. He started with simple comments about the weather, the venue, or a shared experience. He asked light questions. How was your weekend? Have you tried the coffee here? He listened to the answers, responded warmly, and let the conversation flow naturally. To his surprise, these small exchanges opened doors. Clients who once seemed distant began to share personal stories. Colleagues laughed with him before meetings, making teamwork smoother. Even strangers at events became easier to approach. Maverick realized that small talk wasn't trivial. It was trust building. It created comfort, and comfort led to opportunity. For you, the same principle applies. Don't underestimate casual conversation. Use it to break the ice, to show warmth, and to create a relaxed atmosphere. Ask simple questions, share light observations, and let people feel at ease. Small talk is big talk because it lays the foundation for relationships that matter. And once you've built that foundation, the next step is to add warmth, not just with words, but with the power of a genuine smile. Lesson number 7, smile with your eyes. A smile is more than a gesture. It is an invitation. For Maverick, this lesson felt deceptively simple. He had always smiled politely, quick and restrained, the kind of smile that flickers and disappears before it reaches the eyes. But Leil Lowndes described something different, the flooding smile. A smile that begins slowly, spreads naturally, and reaches the eyes, radiating warmth and sincerity. When Maverick tried it, he noticed the difference immediately. At first it felt unusual to hold a smile for a moment longer, to let it build instead of forcing it. But when he greeted colleagues with this genuine smile, their reactions changed. They leaned in, their own expressions softened, and conversations began with ease. Clients who once seemed guarded opened up more quickly. The flooding smile wasn't about charm or manipulation, it was about authenticity. It signaled comfort, trust, and openness. Maverick realized that people didn't just hear his words, they felt his energy. And when that energy was warm, people wanted to connect. For you, the same principle applies. Don't rush your smile. Let it unfold naturally, reaching your eyes. Use it as a silent message that says, "I'm glad to see you." A genuine smile can disarm tension, create instant rapport, and set the tone for meaningful conversation. A smile with your eyes is a powerful tool. And once warmth is established, the next step is to make your words memorable. Not by lecturing, but by telling stories that people carry with them. Lesson number 8. Be a storyteller, not a lecturer. Facts alone rarely inspire. Stories do. For Maverick, this lesson unlocked a new dimension of communication. In his early days at the tech company, he relied heavily on data and product details. He believed that if he explained features clearly enough, people would be convinced. But clients often looked bored, their attention drifting, and colleagues seemed disengaged. He realized he was lecturing, not connecting. When he began weaving stories into his conversations, everything changed. Instead of listing features, he shared how a client had solved a problem using the product. Instead of reciting numbers, he painted a picture of what success looked like for someone in the same situation. His words became vivid, memorable, and persuasive. The difference was striking. Clients leaned in, curious to hear more. Colleagues remembered his points long after meetings ended. Even casual conversations became more engaging when Maverick shared small anecdotes instead of dry explanations. He discovered that storytelling wasn't about performance, it was about relatability. People don't just want information, they want to feel something. At first, Maverick worried that he wasn't a natural storyteller. He thought stories had to be dramatic or perfectly crafted, but he learned that even simple, everyday experiences could be powerful if told with authenticity. A quick anecdote about a challenge he faced, a funny moment from his morning commute, or a small success from a colleague, these stories made him human, approachable, and memorable. He also discovered the importance of structure. A good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It sets the scene, introduces a challenge, and resolves with a takeaway. Maverick practiced this rhythm, keeping his stories short but impactful. Over time, he noticed that people repeated his stories to others, carrying his message further than facts ever could. For you, the same principle applies. Don't overload conversations with facts and details. Instead, Share short, meaningful stories that illustrate your point. Use real examples, personal experiences, or simple analogies. Stories stick in the mind, while lectures fade quickly. Be a storyteller, not a lecturer. Because when people remember your story, they remember you. And once people are engaged by your words, the next step is to leave them with something even more powerful, the feeling that they truly matter. Lesson number 9, leave people feeling important. The greatest communicators are not remembered for how impressive they were, but for how important they made others feel. For Maverick, this lesson reshaped his entire approach. In the past, he tried to prove himself in conversations, showing his knowledge, highlighting his achievements, or pushing his ideas forward. But he noticed something. The harder he tried to impress, the less people seemed to connect. They nodded politely, but the spark of genuine rapport was missing. When he shifted his focus from himself to others, everything changed. Instead of trying to be interesting, he tried to be interested. He asked colleagues about their projects, listened to clients' challenges, and celebrated small wins of those around him. He remembered details, a co-worker's birthday, a client's recent success, and mentioned them naturally in conversation. The impact was profound. People lit up when Maverick acknowledged them. They leaned into conversations, eager to share more. Clients trusted him more deeply, colleagues respected him, and even casual acquaintances felt drawn to his presence. Maverick realized that leaving people feeling important wasn't about grand gestures, it was about small, consistent acts of recognition. For you, the same principle applies. Shift the spotlight, ask questions that show genuine curiosity. Remember details and bring them up later. Offer sincere compliments, not flattery. When people walk away from a conversation feeling valued, they will remember you long after the words fade. Leaving people feeling important is the hallmark of true connection. And once you master this, the final step is knowing how to end conversations gracefully, so that the last impression is just as strong as the first. Lesson number 10, exit with grace. The way you leave a conversation is just as important as the way you begin it. For Maverick, this lesson was eye-opening. He often ended conversations abruptly, a quick thanks or a rushed goodbye before moving on. He thought the important part was what happened during the exchange, not how it ended. But he began to notice that people remembered the awkwardness of his exits more than the content of his words. When he learned to exit with grace, everything shifted. Instead of rushing, he took a moment to close conversations warmly. He expressed genuine appreciation. "I really enjoyed talking with you." He left people with a positive note. "I'm looking forward to working together." He even used small gestures, a smile, a handshake, or a nod, to signal respect and closure. The difference was remarkable. People remembered him fondly, even after brief encounters. Clients felt valued, colleagues felt respected, and acquaintances felt that Maverick cared enough to end on a high note. His exits became part of his reputation, leaving doors open for future connection. For you, the same principle applies. Don't let conversations trail off awkwardly or end in haste. Take a moment to thank the person, acknowledge the exchange, and leave them with a warm impression. A graceful exit ensures that the last thing they remember about you is positive. Exiting with grace is the final touch in the art of communication. It completes the cycle, from first impressions to connection to lasting influence. And for Maverick, it was the moment he realized that communication wasn't just about talking, it was about leaving people better than he found them. Maverick's journey began in uncertainty. At 23, he often felt invisible in rooms full of people, unsure of how to make himself heard or remembered. His shoulders slouched, his words stumbled, and his presence faded before conversations even began. He believed charisma was something you were born with, not something you could learn. But through the lessons of how to talk to anyone, Maverick discovered that communication is not a gift reserved for a few. It is a skill, a craft, and a path to transformation. Each lesson reshaped him. He learned that impressions are formed before words, and by adjusting his posture and presence, he could command attention without speaking. He discovered that listening was more powerful than talking, that remembering names made people feel seen, and that mirroring body language created instant rapport. He realized confidence mattered more than perfection, and that small talk was not trivial, but the foundation of trust. He unlocked warmth through the flooding smile, engagement through storytelling, and influence by leaving people feeling important. Finally, he mastered the art of exiting with grace, ensuring that every encounter ended on a positive note. The emotional impact of these lessons was profound. Maverick no longer felt like an outsider in conversations. He began to walk into meetings with quiet confidence, greet colleagues with genuine warmth, and leave clients feeling valued. His transformation was not about becoming someone else. It was about uncovering the best version of himself. The awkward young man who once feared being overlooked became a communicator who inspired trust, built relationships, and left lasting impressions. What makes Maverick's story powerful is that it reflects the book's central theme. Communication is not about tricks or manipulation, but about connection. Every technique he learned was rooted in respect, presence, and authenticity. By practicing these skills, Maverick discovered that the true art of talking to anyone lies in making others feel important, heard, and valued. And in doing so, he found his own voice. For the listener, Maverick's journey is a reminder that transformation is possible. You don't need to be born charismatic. You don't need to have perfect words or flawless delivery. What you need is the willingness to practice presence, to listen with intention, to smile with sincerity, and to tell stories that resonate. These small shifts create big changes. They build confidence, open doors, and turn strangers into allies. The emotional impact of these lessons is not just about communication, it's about life. When you learn to connect deeply, you build trust in relationships, confidence in yourself, and influence in the world around you. You stop worrying about being impressive and start focusing on being impactful. You stop chasing perfection and start embracing authenticity. And in that shift, you discover the power to transform not only how others see you, but how you see yourself. Maverick's new outlook is one of confidence and encouragement. He knows that every conversation is an opportunity, not to prove himself, but to connect. He understands that charisma is not about being the loudest voice in the room, but about being the most attentive, the most genuine, and the most present. His journey shows that anyone can learn these skills, and anyone can change the way they are remembered. So take these lessons with you. Stand tall before you speak. Listen with intention. Smile with your eyes. Tell stories that matter. Leave people feeling important. Exit with grace. And above all, remember that communication is not about talking to anyone. It's about connecting with everyone. Now here's where your own journey begins. Maverick's transformation is proof that small changes lead to big results. His story shows that confidence, warmth, and connection are skills you can practice every day. Reflect on these lessons, try them in your own conversations, and notice how people respond differently when you show up with presence and sincerity. If this journey inspired you, consider subscribing. Not because it's expected, but because it's a way to continue learning, growing, and building the skills that will transform your own life. By joining, you'll stay connected to more stories, more lessons, and more encouragement to help you become the communicator you want to be. Share this with someone who's ready to grow too, and together, let's make every conversation count. Because in the end, Maverick's story is not just his, it's yours too. The lessons are universal, the transformation is possible, and the path is open. All it takes is the decision to begin.